I can now. Yeah, I couldn't a second ago.
That was weird.
We'll get how are you?
I'm good. You know, not after the game, but outside of that, it's all right.
Just general life is okay. Yeah.
Yeah. That was not fun. Not the most fun match I think we've ever watched, right?
No, 16 long days between Premier League games and 2-0-0s. So we have lots to talk about. We don't, but we'll be all right. So welcome everybody to episode 240. We're talking Wolves. Let's get our friends at Green King sorted first, shall we? And then we'll wrap up because that's about all we need to talk. So 2024 is here, which means a packed schedule for the FA Cup, which is coming up here shortly, AFCON, and of course, Premier League action. So feel free to beat the January blues if you're suffering from them, and watch every game with the atmosphere it deserves down at your local Green King Sports pub. Don't settle for a dodgy stream. If it's on the telly, it's on at your local Green King across their huge HD screens. Sky Sports is showing every single AFCON match going. So that means that we will be there at every pub if you want to go and watch it. If you download the Green King Sports app, you'll also receive 10% off every single drink whenever there's a game on. You've also got a range of low and no alcohol options, of course, in this day and age. So dry January doesn't mean you have to settle for a worse sports watching experience. I almost said sports washing. We're talking about the AFCON, not whatever Saudi are doing these days. Adam, how have you spent your last 16 days since we last played a game of football?
Yeah, well, and that's even if you count the FA Cup, right?
Correct.
It's basically like 3 weeks since I haven't had as much of a good time as your dogs are having, but basically 3 weeks since West Ham. And from the last one, for people that listened last time around, how annoyed I was at the West Ham game. Because, we talked about it was Moyes' terrorist ball. And instead, we faced Gary O'Neill terrorist ball. And it was, honestly, if they put on claret and blue, it was the same game. And I just despise this. And I don't know what I despise more. I don't know if I despise the opposition tactics more or our lack of penetration in breaking down a quote unquote low block. I hate that term, but I'm going to use it. I know you asked me what I've been up to outside of football, but I've already got annoyed thinking about the game yesterday. I guess to answer your question, I was maybe in a positive mindset because I didn't have to watch us face teams sit with 10/11 men behind the ball and bore us to tears for 95 minutes. But, here we are back again. What about you?
Yep. Understandable. Yeah, no, it's been a slow start to the year, just like we have been for scoring goals. I was there at Stoke though, and it was a belting game at least for the Stoke game. At least it was entertaining, lots of goals scored. We've somehow suddenly stopped scoring goals all in the Premier League, but yeah, like you say, it was very much a rinse and repeat from January the 2nd, which is never a great experience. Once you've kind of done it once, it's like, all right, we got a clean sheet now, we never need to have a game like that again, and we had one immediately.
I feel bad for the people that had to go to Farmer on a Monday night and deal with all the various standard transit issues that you have to watch that crap, because it was crap, but it was just dull, and if anything, we should have lost. Wolves were way more dangerous on the chances they created. I mean, we've got the stats here, right? I know we're just going into this, but honestly, the sooner we
may as well
stop talking about this hell game and focus on positives in the future, and the fact that we signed Barco since we last spoke, and we've got some interesting games coming up. Whereas we can't bloody score against Luton and then Palace, and then Sheffield United in the FA Cup. Then we've got bigger problems, but. What was the actual data behind this one, Josh? Because I think we had 71% of the ball, did we not?
We did, yeah, almost 72, really. We pretty much matched them for shots, 11-8. We did have one more shot on target than them, and it ended with a 1.0 to a 1.1 XG. So really,
they had a higher XG
by 0.1.
So we had 71 or 72% of the ball. Now I think the shots thing is misleading because it all depends on whether you take into account blocked shots. Because we had 6 blocked shots.
Yep.
We only had 4 shots on target to their 3, as you say. We had 1 shot off target and they had 5. And it's just like corners wise, we had 8 to their 2. They had a total of 5 plus counter attacks on us, which, I mean, you don't need to look at the data to actually see how they played. But it was basically us having almost zero creativity in terms of creating opportunities and chances, and then smacking the ball against a variety of different Wolves defenders and wondering why we weren't winning a game. And then everyone was pushed up. Van Hecker was playing central attacking midfielder. And then suddenly we're like, oh, why is Jason Steele completely out of his area, missing Cunha, who thankfully just shot completely wide into an open goal? It was just, I know we've got a lot of players out injured, but this was probably the first game, you could argue West Ham was also a sign of this, where it felt like we had no creativity because of those injuries, especially on the wings, because all these teams do is chock up the middle. They say, go, all right, great, go out and rely on your wingers to create opportunities. João Pedro probably had his worst game in recent memory for us yesterday, after being obviously outstanding outside of that. And then on the right side, I mean, what did we even have on the right side? Was it Buonanotte attempting to do things?
Yes, possibly. It was a weird one, wasn't it? Because Hinshelwood was the main guy there, and Buonanotte just kept trying to come in as much as he could. He seems to be much preferring playing on the inside. Yeah, I mean, they just set up perfectly, didn't they? Like, and it's not hard at this point. You just pop in that like horrible, almost arrowhead formation and know that we can't go outside because we simply have no wingers at all left, right? Like it's all well and good saying like, you know, we failed to beat a low block, but like you said, like there was never a point where it looked like we could, because we had one dimension of playing, and that was hopefully utilizing our players through the middle with some tight, intricate play. Because out wide, we had James Milner playing as left wing back on one side, and we had Hinshelwood and Buonanotte combining to try and play on the right. And Estepinian essentially playing centre back for a lot of the game in a weird back 3. It was, I mean, it's horrible, but also like, what are we? How are we supposed to combat it at this point? Because we, you know, Enciso out, Fati out, Adingra, AFCON, Mitoma, Asian Cup. Who else have we got? There are more.
Well, we're then talking about defenders. I'm not sure if we've got other attackers that are out, but that's a lot already. That's all of them.
Pedro isn't really a winger or comfortable on the wing. Lamptey, who has came on at right wing a couple of times and looked quite good, didn't come on until late yesterday, and then we barely touched the.
We didn't give him the ball.
Not at all. Yeah, like I mean, like they know what they needed to do, and they did it easily because we simply have no other option. And when you look at that team and you think, all right, we can see what we're doing. We need to bring on some personnel to stretch them here. And you look at the bench and you go, oh yeah, we literally have no player in the entire squad left capable of stretching them because they're all injured or gone on international duty. And even those that are on international duty are also injured anyway. So
I get it. I do. And I think you almost have to point this out, right? Because we didn't look like this side before. We looked way more free flowing, but at the same time, sides weren't being this egregiously defensive against us. It felt like, to me at least, earlier on in the season, and it's almost like they've just seen the blueprint for it and just everyone goes out to do it. If they're a side that doesn't have that arrogance to have to play with all of the ball and play attacking football, which, you know, we won't see these tactics when you face an Arsenal or a Spurs or a Man City, right? We've seen that, and we have games that, yes, sure, we end up potentially losing them, but they're games where it's a little bit more interesting. We should be able to break this stuff down even without the creative players that we have. And I say that it's somewhat unfair to say, but even when we decided, all right, let's mix this up, let's change things around a little bit. You take off Danny Welbeck, you bring on Evan Ferguson in the 65th minute. That gives you about half an hour of football where you're tweaking things a little bit more. Now, the thought process there, right, would be, okay, well, they're forcing us out to the wings. So instead of us trying to play intricate passing football into the box to create opportunities for Danny Welbeck to score, let's switch it up. We've now got the big lad in the middle. Let's try and get some balls in and actually cross the ball. And how much of that did you see? We had a 8 out of 32 cross percentage, so 25% cross success rate. Because every time we tried to cross the ball, the number of times that it just hit the first defender on
Even
every
free
attempt,
kicks, corners, it was wild.
every attempt,
Crazy.
And I'm sorry, but these players should be able to put a cross. I don't care if it's not like Matoma or whatever. You should be able to just put a cross into the box and give Evan Ferguson an opportunity to at least have a header, or someone else have a header. We've seen João Pedro with his ability. If you bring the ball out to the right hand side, that allows João Pedro to cut in. Then you suddenly got those two taller players in the middle, so you can create more opportunities. And it's almost like De Zerbi tried to make a tactical change, but then we still played the same way with different people involved. And Evan Ferguson recently has shown absolutely minimal ability to play as a hold-up striker. He just gets crowded out. The ball bounces off his foot and he can't hold the ball up, and suddenly the play breaks down. We've seen that so much from him recently. And I want to see something a little bit different. It feels like at the moment we bang our head against the wall and then nothing changes. So, let's try something a little bit different. It's not been working for 65 minutes.
Yeah, the rise and fall of Evan Ferguson is definitely something we'll want to touch on in a future episode if it continues on this trajectory, because it's really worrying stuff. And all the talk at the beginning of the window of Chelsea wanting to come in and break the British transfer record to sign him this January has gone very quiet as well. Probably just bullshit paper talk, isn't it, really? But Pedro Purvis and Pascal Gross had 19 crosses between them last night, and they got 7 of them accurate.
That's what I mean.
It's just unacceptable between the two of them. Like this is the two players that you're really in that team relying on to put the most balls in the box, right? Like you're actually natural left back, left wing back, and like the most creative guy in the Premier League outside of Kevin De Bruyne, who made his return in style last week, didn't he? Mm-hmm. But he's supposed to be phenomenal at this sort of stuff, and it was just nothing. There was nothing to be seen. I feel like it's felt like such a breath of fresh air getting Danny Welbeck in the squad, simply because of how utterly poor Ferguson has been, and that's sad. Like that's really like disappointing when I sit there and go, oh, I love seeing Danny Welbeck in the starting 11. That's nice to have him back, because really we should all be like over the moon with the idea of Pedro and Ferguson starting together. And
yes,
whatever has happened with Evan this year has been really, really poor. I will say not quite as poor as that Wolves away kit though. Absolutely disgusting. Like it's literally just the Portugal kit, and it doesn't look right on Wolves at all. It was horrible.
Yeah, look. If the key thing that you do is if you are essentially owned by either a nation state or basically a notorious agent, you just accommodate your away or third kit to represent that individual's colours, and that's simple as that. Why not? I expect at a certain point, we'll have some other squads just roll out some stars and stripes. Maybe we'll get that with Burnley, because how many US investors have Burnley got now at this point? Who's the other? Was it JJ Watt that bought a stake in Burnley?
Yeah, it was JJ.
Yeah, well, they'll get their
third.
He went off on a big Texan Longhorn. Don't worry, it'll happen soon.
Because he went crazy, didn't he, on Twitter after a decision that was absolutely right, and he still just lost his shit. And he was like, I don't watch much football, and I was like, well, clearly you do not.
Well, precisely. I want to go back to Ferguson quickly because obviously people are going to be like, "Oh, why are you hating on Ferguson?" Well, we're not hating on Ferguson. We're disappointed with the performances for whatever reason that is recently because we've seen how good Ferguson is and how good he can be, and he's just been stifled or suffocated of opportunities. And then when he's had the opportunities, he's been disappointed with them. He came on at the 64th minute yesterday. So that was over basically 30 minutes of football. He touched the ball 12 times. And this is, again, a situation where if you play a setup where you've basically got one central attacking player, which is pretty much what we're doing, right? Because Welbeck came off for him. When you're facing teams that set up in that structure like Wolves and West Ham have done, that individual barely gets any chances. They barely get any touches. And we saw that yesterday. But the difference is, if he's crowded out, you have to then have your other players do something. And the other players weren't doing a damn thing either. So it's like, well, you don't get your ball to your number 9. And when the ball does come to him, he looks a bit dodgy with his touches. And then the other players that have got more space because you've got 2 or 3 people surrounding Evan Ferguson in the center of the box. Well, you've got to do something. Do something with the ball, and they all failed.
We saw a real aversion to shoot yesterday, didn't we?
My God!
I felt like there was one particular moment. Yeah, towards the end of the game, I think there was one particular moment where João Pedro had about 6 opportunities to hit it and took none of them.
The crowd just went, after we lost the ball.
I think everybody did in every living room around the world that was watching that game. Just groaned, except for Wolves fans, I suppose. But like that, and that really typifies what that game felt like, didn't it? Like you said, like if Ferguson is crowded out and he's supposed to be your arrowhead, like you need the other guys to step up. Pascal Gross couldn't hit a barn door with a banjo yesterday, which is unbelievably rare. João Pedro, for some reason, who is always keen to shoot, even if it's not great, didn't want to shoot at all yesterday. Hinshelwood was anonymous. They never got the ball to Lamptey when he did come on. Milner is Milner. Like, he shouldn't be playing at left wing anyway, but I understand the idea behind it. Estupiñán was playing centre half. Like, there was no... And Gilmour was basically asked to just cover the middle on his own.
Yeah. And he was probably the only half-decent player yesterday.
Yeah.
And he wasn't very good. Yeah. I've made no secret of my fandom of Billy Gilmour, but he can't do it all on his own. And it was probably our worst game in terms of creativity I've seen us play this year.
This year?
Yeah. But as in this last 365 days.
Let's move on to some positive stuff, though, because we are still in the FA Cup. And we have just signed Valentin Barco for what should be an absolute steal. We're heading up to Sheffield twice in the space of, I think, 3 weeks or so.
Correct.
With, I think, Luton and Palace in between them.
And
Spurs as well. There is a lot of points on offer here, isn't there? As well as this place in the 5th round with Sheffield United, Luton, Palace, and then Sheffield United again. Spurs away is a bit of a write-off, but those groups of games there with returning players, right? We're hopeful that we're going to be starting to see some players filter through by the time we hit the 18th of February with Enciso back in training, Fati back in training, AFCON and the Asian Games coming to an end. I think Ivory Coast are just about knocked out, so it may be perfect time for Adingra to make his return. He may well get a bit of a rest and maybe even get some game time against Luton. But there's really no better time, right? Like, these games are games we need to be getting results from.
Yeah, I want to talk about this. So yeah, I think the Ivory Coast, by the way, if you've been following the Africa Cup of Nations, it's one of the weirdest AFCONs in terms of results in recent memory. So I don't know if you've seen the Ivory Coast team, but it's like far and away the best actual like squad of players in the whole tournament. Like, it's ridiculous. They've got, like, I know he's not amazing, but Nicolas Pepe, Fofana, Kessie, Sangare, Bolly, and Dika. Like, like a whole host of good players. As we talked about, you had a Dingra come off the bench yesterday, I think 83rd minute. They lost 4-0 to Equatorial Guinea. I challenge you to recognize a single player from Equatorial Guinea. It's remarkable. But yeah, what that does mean is we should have a Dingra back pretty much now, because I think they are done and dusted in their group. They've played 3 games. They've got 3 points minus 3 goal difference, and Guinea and Nigeria are on 7 points. So I think that they're out. This is going to be a very, very, very significant run of games. So a lot of them are away. You've got that cup game against Sheffield United in 27th. So this Saturday, as we record. Then 3 days later, you've got a game away against Luton. Few days after that, on the Saturday, you got Crystal Palace at home.
Yep.
Then a week after that, you've got Spurs away, and then 8 days after that, you play Sheffield United away again. 6 days after that, you've got Everton at home. And then a week or so after that, you've got Fulham away. A week after that, you've got Forest at home.
When does the FA Cup 5th round get played? Do you know?
No idea. But it's probably squeezed in. I'd need to look that up. It's got to be squeezed in there somewhere. But I guess the overarching point there is every single one of those games, it's rare you get a run in all of these outside of the FA Cup game where you look at it and you say, there are 3 points on offer there from all of these games.
Absolutely.
All of them.
Yep.
Now that invariably won't be the case, but you're not scared of Luton away, really. Let's be, of all the things you could be scared of, you're probably not scared of Luton away, despite some of the results they've had recently. Palace at home, if you can't take advantage of this Palace side at this point in time, who look absolutely defeated under Hodgson, with Graham Potter about to stroll in there, bring out his homeless tent and sleep on the street outside of Selhurst Park. You gotta win that game. Do
you think he gets signed up?
I don't
know. That he's the manager before the end of the season?
Steve Cooper as well in the picture as well, right?
Roy's done though. Roy is. They're all. I've so many Palace fans were laughing at the way he treated Watford at the end, and they were like, he's Palace through and through. He doesn't care about anyone else, and he's just doing the same. He just doesn't give a shit, does he? He's almost acting out as much as possible to get the payout, just like he did with Watford. Like, there's a lot of talented young players there that he's berating to the media too, isn't he? Like, he doesn't care.
Well, I think he's a bit of a legend, but I think he needs to aspirationally be what we all aspire to at the end of our careers. As in, you've built up enough of a reputation where you're like, I don't want to work anymore, really. And then someone comes to you and says, how about all this money? And you go, well, I don't really care, but I'll do it. And they sign you up, and then you just don't do any work, and they just give you a shit ton of money and you walk off. That is pretty much superb. Yeah, amazing. Well done to him. But it's wonderful to see, obviously, from our perspective. But we've seen what we can do against Spurs, right? It's going to be a different Spurs side because it's going to be a different Brighton side. They had a ton of injuries when we played them, right? They'll probably have players like Maddison back. They've already got that defender back whose name's escaping me at the moment, who's been fairly good. I don't know if Son will probably be back then as well, so we'll have to see. So that might be that's obviously going to be the trickiest proposition, but I think you've got to expect an average of 2 points from this string of games, because if not, you face the dirty end of the season after that.
Yeah, and we've got a game right after the Sheffield United one this weekend. You've got to assume he's going to prioritize league over cup, right? We all say that he doesn't, but the sample size we've been given of the first half of the season, we've seen that he has, in hindsight, played a weaker team before then knocking out another one, right? Like, thinking of the Marseille game in December, we played a much weaker side than we probably anticipated against some of the other teams. Arsenal, right afterwards, for example, rotated to be a much weaker side to then put out a stronger one at Palace. Not that it got us a result, but we didn't get beat, so that's always good. You would think that he's going to have to be forced to do something along the same lines here. Do you think that we start seeing a couple of those proper babies come into the picture here? We saw Baker Boati come on last night.
Yeah.
He's been trusted a few times. Do you think he gets a start? Obviously, Baleba, Moda, Pupion. We've got a couple of others as well. Hinchy. There's a group of names in there that have been kind of making cameos here and there. Do you think he starts rolling a couple of those out against Sheffield United, or do you think that he will be a little bit more ambitious than that and keep with kind of as many first team names as he possibly can field from his limited amount of players that he's got?
Yeah, I think he's going to probably roll out, go on the stronger side again. You might have a couple of youth players, but again, what we've talked about and what you've seen and what you hinted at there, pretty much every time that we've had a cup style game, it's not like he's just lobbed out the old sort of Arsene Wenger style of just, here's a bunch of guys you've never heard of and we don't care about this. He's gone for it. So I don't think we'll probably see a ton of like youth come in, but I think the hope here is going to be that he'll play some of the players a little bit of rotation with the hope that you can then give longer periods of time to the players coming back from injury in the game against Luton. So as in maybe you will get 75 minutes out of Tarek Lamptey, or maybe you do have Adingra come back and is able to put out 80, 90 minutes because he's now back in the picture. But you're right in the sense that we might see Baleba and Moda and players like that where they're not the guys that have no experience underneath them, but they're the players where you're like, okay, try and do something against Sheffield United in the cup. Go on, give it a go.
Yeah, I think so too. I think we'll definitely see Webster, Verbruggen, Moda. I think we'll see a bunch of those players come in. It would be crazy not to, really. Also want to put out a little bit of condolences to the citizens of China. Ronaldo's team were over there. I'm not sure if you saw that. They're over there for a mini tour, but he's got injured, so the whole thing got cancelled. Just very serious football is taking place around the world. But it's one of the funniest things I've read today, so I really wanted to just shoehorn that in there because it's just a level of absurdity that we're just getting closer to.
Cristiano Ronaldo.
Yeah.
Oh, it sort of has to be. It's not going to be bloody Nazario de Lima. He could barely.
I wish it was.
Yeah. I cannot really express how much I despise Cristiano Ronaldo as an individual and a footballer.
Yeah, no, same. All right. Valentin Barco. We do have a new player on the books. The one I think we all predicted that was going to be coming in. We all figured that he would possibly go back out on loan per Andy Naylor. Seems like De Zerbi's had a bit of a change of opinion there, and he will not be going anywhere. He said for depth, really, like we could possibly use him here, and I'm sure we could. Left back, left wing back, left winger, central attacking midfielder, even central midfielder in general. A couple of times with Boca Juniors last year. How much of an impact do you anticipate him having this season?
Well, it depends what side of De Zerbi he gets on, because and we've got a question in the chat, Miniweek, asking about what's going on with Dahoud. Why have we not seen more of him? He's pissed De Zerbi off. And we talked about this maybe a couple of episodes ago, which feels like a long time ago at this point. But basically, he sort of came out, didn't he? And he was just like, he's not trying hard enough. And when he's playing, he doesn't do what I ask him to, and he doesn't deserve to play. And he's just dropped him completely. So I don't know how much we'll see of Dahoud at all ongoing at this point. It wasn't even in this. I mean, when you've got Baker Buate in ahead of Dahoud, of the squad, you're on De Zerbi's bad side. De Zerbi's shown, right, that he'll play anyone if they are doing what they should be doing in training and then putting in the right kind of performance when they're given the opportunity. We've seen that with his willingness to play Hinchelwood. We've seen that with his some reason willingness to play Buonanotte. And we've seen the opposite side of that with Baleba not getting much time on the pitch, regardless of the talent we've seen when he's played. We don't know what Barco is going to be like in training, but I don't know how he can be much worse than the creativity that we saw yesterday. And I would have dreamt to have lobbed anyone in with an ounce of flair and creativity yesterday on the 70th, 80th minute. because we were screaming out for it and we just didn't have the players.
I don't think he's back, is he? I don't think he's even in England until the end of January, early
Is it
February.
under 20 somethings, isn't he?
Yeah, he's with like some Argentinian under 23, under 21s team for some qualification games, I think. So I think that's why his like unveiling picture, like video he had was like just some random selfie video he had because he's nowhere near the club. Also, absolutely fair play to the team for putting out an excellent signing video.
Yeah, not bad, was it?
We've seen so many good ones over the years, and it's so nice to like have ours up there now as one that like the general populace looked at and thought that was a really cool one. Like,
what was it for the people that hadn't seen it, Josh?
Yes, so for the Football Manager fans amongst us, it would have been an extra kick for you guys if you're not a Football Manager lover like I am. You should be one. Just go buy the next one and play it. Trust me, you'll love it. But essentially, Valentin Barco is a wonder kid on Football Manager 24, and we all know how low his release clause is. So if you're a Premier League manager or just about any top flight manager in Football Manager, Barco is one of the easiest signings you make immediately. Those of you who've ever heard of Freddie Adu, you'll know that those wonder kids sometimes work out well, sometimes not so well. But he came in and the Albion's entire shtick basically was that he was a Football Manager wonder kid, and did it all through the Football Manager engine, which was very fun. And finally, we're kind of utilizing that little sponsorship partnership we have with SI. So it was fun. It was good. It was nice to see other fans be like, yep, that was a cool one, because we're a top flight Premier League team. We should be putting some more effort into our signing announcements. So I was happy to see it. Do you think we see any more in January is the key question, Adam?
Well, this is an issue in the sense that my hope is very different from what maybe the reality is going to be.
I feel like that could also be copy pasted for Roberto De Zerbi.
Yeah. I mean, when we had this conversation, maybe you asked this question a few weeks back, my answer was that I think we probably have someone else, if plausible, that comes in beyond Valentin Barco. Is that still the case? It's not been much noise, has there? There was a lot of noise prior to the Barco one. There was noise in the summer about Barco, and then we got it done. There's not been a whole lot of noise now. There's been a couple of names thrown around. I think is it Veerman, the Dutch chap, that's been lobbed around a couple of times. There was also talk about West Ham wanting to sign him. Well, West Ham have just agreed to loan Calvin Phillips from Manchester City today. So maybe that puts them out of the running. It would be great if we could bring in another body there. I think probably, as you hinted at there, De Zerbi's stance on this is, well, you've seen we need more reinforcements. People will continue to get injured. I'm not ready to bring in Baleba. Moda's still going to be on a long process of coming back from injury, and Dahoud is dead to me. So it'll be nice to bring in someone else, maybe in central midfield or elsewhere. So if De Zerbi is as compelling to the fan base as he is to, or rather is compelling enough to Barber and Bloom as he is to the fan base, then we'll bring another player in. So I'd say maybe one more. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I would have been delighted if the only other piece of business we did this January was bringing in Calvin Phillips for 5 months, frankly, on loan. Like, that would have been an excellent piece of business given our midfield group. But obviously West Ham have got in there. I would really hope that
wages though, they're like obscene, aren't they?
Yeah, I hope we at least ask the question just to find out. Like, I'd be really disappointed if we didn't even go, what's the haps? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I would like to think we are. But yeah, like you say, there's a lot of talk, but I don't think we'll be signing anybody else between now and the end of the window. Not at all. And come the summer, we might be able to see some really spicy fireworks from Roberto, because I think this summer will really make or break as to whether he's here with us next season or not, depending on that transfer policy. And where we end up finishing with all the tournaments we're still in, frankly.
It would, I think we could really have done with a nice sort of South American creative winger spark last night. And turns out, there was one scoring against Leicester City for Ipswich, who we lobbed back out on loan. Why did we not just bring Sarmiento back?
I think that they really, really want to get him game time. Like just pure and simple game time. That's all.
Hey, he would have got
that's why they
45 minutes from me last night after seeing that first half.
I don't disagree at all. I see Abdallah Sima has also now got injured.
Yes.
He's out for long term, which is very
He's been very good, right?
Yeah. It's a bummer though, really, isn't it? Because for me, like in this transfer window, I'm not really bothered about attackers because as many people have pointed out on social media, the hellhole is sometimes unearths some correct takes. Like once they are all fit again, we've got too many attackers as is. So you don't really want to be bringing in another one or two more, even on a basis when we are potentially 30 days away from having Enciso, Fati, Adingra, and Mitoma all back. Buonanote's been all right since Pedro, Ferguson, Welbeck. Like you've got a lot of Pascal Gross. Like you've got a lot of options there. So and Barco, right? Depending on where they end up putting him, because the Boca fans are absolutely convinced he is not a left back, especially in this economy, the Premier League. They're convinced he's not. Like he's a left wing back at best, according to them, and they've watched him play every game, right? So we've arguably just brought on an attacker there as well. So for me, like at this point, we're once again back to the same problem we had in the summer. We need more central midfield depth that offers something different, aka Moises Caicedo-esque type players. And we need more fullbacks that are actual real fullbacks and not Jack Hinchelwood doing his best. Like, and I like Jack Hinchelwood. We've talked ad nauseum about how great he's been, but we don't have a right back. Like we still actually don't have a right back that you can rely on for more than 60 minutes.
No, we don't.
Because Tarek Lamptey is not a right back that you can play for more than 60 minutes in a game. And Veltman is not a right back. I understand he's been great for us at right back and has played more games at right back than he has at centre half over the last 2 years. But he's not a right back. His whole career has been a centre half. Like you can't just convert him, hope it works out, and then say he's a natural right back. Like he's not a right back. Adam Virgo is not a natural striker, right? Like we pushed him up there and he scored some absolute bangers for one season when we were awful. Doesn't mean he's like a natural hunter. Like we desperately need fullbacks. We need fullbacks and we need central midfielders. And I don't think we'll be doing either of those until the summer. And I really hope we pull our fingers out in the summer and get some money spent on both of those positions, right back and centre mid, please.
The fullback thing's interesting, and I feel like people are going to be like, "Well, no, it wasn't Hinchelwood's fault yesterday. He wasn't the problem." Well, no, but the system that is employed here by De Zerbi puts that fullback wingback position pretty much of like right up there of paramount importance because of how much reliance you have on moving the ball up the wings. Being able to cover back quickly, as we talked about with Hinchelwood in the past, which he does a very good job of. But it's a massive creative outlet on the overlap, especially given the deficiencies we've got of right wing at the moment and left wing, depending on your stance on João Pedro playing out there. So, yes, as you say, Hinchelwood's done amazing, but he wasn't the guy even a few weeks ago. He wasn't the guy at the start of the season in any way. None of us were really talking about him being our starting right wing back. It's an important position for us, and we've not seen a real right wing back play for quite a while, really.
Agreed. Yep.
Just to pour water on the even suggestion of that additional player coming in, is a few hours back, obviously Andy Naylor came out and said a source close to Arthur Vermeuren is unaware, as things stand, of Brighton's reported interest in the midfielder. He's been linked with numerous clubs in the Premier League and La Liga. So when Naylor comes out and rains on parades, that normally is just taking that rumor out the back and shooting in the head, because that will be as good as club PR speak as you'll get it. So who knows? Maybe the club is potentially wising up a little bit, if it's fair to describe it as that. In that every player we seem to go for now generates immediate interest just because we're going for them. So maybe there has to be a little bit more subterfuge as to how we go about buying players, because now it's not just oh, don't worry, Brighton are signing some guy that they're going to train up over time and maybe he'll be good or maybe not. Now it's, oh shit, Brighton are signing the player. Let's beat them to it. We've got more money than them. So maybe there has to be a little bit more messing around and smoke and mirrors when we're buying players. But maybe I'm reading into it too much.
It was very clear that Manchester City wanted Barco too. So, I'm sitting here bitching about the fact we don't have a right back, but we're also capable of pulling off coup after coup after coup, right? Like if we're in the right position. Ansu Fati in the last minute of the summer window out of absolutely nowhere. Absolutely insane.
Yeah, right.
And then obviously this Barco deal, right? Like we were the only ones that continued to pursue that. And this is a Manchester City side that is capable of committing about 865 different types of fraud in order to keep themselves afloat. But they can't get the deal for Barco done because they just can't be bothered to go through the mediation that's needed for these South American transfers. And we did. And we kept on him and we pursued him and he's now a Brighton player. So fair play to us. And for the price we got him for, I mean, that's outrageous. And everybody talks about, sell on fee this, sell on fee that. Like they've got nothing. We offered them a sell on fee and they still wouldn't take it because we wanted to break down the payments into two, didn't we? We wanted to go from, instead of just 10 million straight, I think we wanted to do 5 million this year, 5 million in 6 months or whatever, and then a 10% sell on fee.
Yep.
But Boca don't need the sell-on fee really in their position. They are effectively like one of the biggest teams in South America. What are they going to do with that money? That's not the way they operate. So they got their money. We got our player. Very happy. I cannot believe that we are now 41 minutes into this podcast. For those of you talking about getting blood from a stone, I will point you to this forever and always now that we have got 41 minutes and 30 seconds out of a 0-0 draw against Wolves, that if you've watched it, you'll be as shocked as we are.
You'd think we're getting paid for this. Really, this is like we had fully intended to come on here and talk for about 10 minutes and then never speak of this game again. So it's pretty nuts.
Yeah, we've done a good job. I think we can wrap there though. Sheffield United this weekend. I will be there. So I'll be going to both actually, 2 trips up to Sheffield in a matter of weeks.
God bless.
Lucky me. The last time I went there, I got about 50 odd coins lobbed at me from above. So that will be fun. Hopefully they've got a bit more protection up there before. But I did see a couple of people collecting on some of that change, and it actually
in this economy, lobbing coins.
Yeah, a while ago now, when we were much worse than we are this time. But yeah, so I'll be up there for both of those. So that will be fun. Hopefully we can progress into the next round because there's a lot of teams, good teams, that are getting knocked out. If they haven't been, they're about to be with some of the clashes that we've got in this 4th round. So progress is never a bad thing.
Yeah, and pray for some of the other various AFCON nations to finish slightly better on points than Ivory Coast do. So Ivory Coast are fully out and we get Adingra back because I don't want to see whatever that was on the right wing again against anyone else. Yeah, please.
Yeah. Please, Africa, listen to us. All right. So we will be back this weekend coming up for Sheffield United recap and looking ahead to a midweek Luton game followed by Palace, which will probably double header that weekend. So have a wonderful week and we'll speak soon.
Thanks all.